anymore. And now I have the privilege to introduce Maryangela DiTucci, Degrazia-DiTucci, or otherwise known as Maryangela to us. And Maryangela is the president, patient, and founder of the Association of Gastrointestinal Motility Disorders that we refer to as AMGD. She became ill with pseudo-obstruction in 1979. Over the years, her disease progressed to include her entire digestive tract. Along with pseudo-obstruction, she's been diagnosed with gastroparesis, diffuse esophageal spasms, and several other disorders. She founded AMGD in 1991, and this organization is one of the groups that the Oley Foundation works with to understand the needs of digestive motility community. So I introduced Maryangela as our facilitator and also the first speaker. So take it away, Maryangela.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you, and I want to thank the whole entire Oley team for always putting on such wonderful programs, and especially this one. Going virtual is a little different than being in person, and I've been to so many of them, and they're always outstanding. In one sweeping moment, our lives have been changed, and we enter a new and frightening existence filled with chaos and fear, desperate to make sense of what is happening. We watch everything that we took for granted being stolen away, and all we're left with is fragile hope and well-tested faith. This is what so many of us cling to. And like so many others with digestive motility disorders, we have endured the unrelenting fear of not knowing what is wrong, the agony of waiting for appointments, the anguish of dealing with the results of tests, and the awesome confusion and emptiness that often comes from leaving the physician's office only to deal with the challenge of living with chronic disease and all its chaos alone. It's been over 42 years since I was able to sit down to a meal with my family and eat with them. Hunger is something foreign to me, and I struggle to recall the taste of food and the enjoyment of eating it all. A day without challenging symptoms is beyond my recall as well. And the fact that I'm here today is nothing short of a miracle, for the doctors had predicted that I would have an abbreviated life. In June 1979, Frank and I would be married, but in February of that year, something went terribly wrong with my health. And I remember sitting in the doctor's office waiting for the results of tests. My belly was swollen and hard. I had severe constipation mixed with mucus diarrhea, extreme abdominal pain, and nausea. I was losing weight, didn't have an appetite, was lethargic and weak. And soon the doctor sent me home armed with prescriptions for tranquilizers, sleeping pills, and antispasmodics. The doctor felt that my symptoms were all related to stress, but I wasn't stressed. And in my heart, I knew something more was wrong, very wrong. And I obediently and diligently took all the medications as prescribed, although I continued to struggle with the intense and worsening symptoms. I would remain in the bathroom for 2.5 hours, giving myself a 2-liter enema filled with water, and no stool would come out, and not even the water, the enema water. Desperate, I'd give myself another enema and then a third, and still not a drop of water or any evidence of stool would come out. My belly was grossly swollen and the pain excruciating, and I was nauseous and weak. Sores were etched on the bottom, on my bottom, from the impression of the toilet seat. All day and all night, I struggled with these symptoms without any relief. These symptoms continued for 5 years as I went from doctor to doctor searching for answers and relief. And I accumulated volumes of medical records indicating that the symptoms were from stress, spastic colon, colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, stemming from my head, and self-induced. And then in the 5th year of marriage, I couldn't stop vomiting. I couldn't move my bowels. I became weak and dehydrated, and finally had to acquiesce and be admitted to the hospital. X-rays revealed gas loops, that was all. And so in light of this, the doctors felt I was suffering from anorexia nervosa. I was placed in the position of having to defend my integrity, to defend the realness of my symptoms, and that my hesitation to eat came from a result of the intense and debilitating symptoms I was experiencing. I had the bold stripping of my dignity stripped away as each morning the nurse would shuffle into the hospital room, rolling the scale behind her, and then she prodded me to climb up on the scale platform. I'd step up with a deep dread. Her words to this day still echo in my mind. "Shame on you," she scolded, as if I was a child. "You lost another 2 pounds." That dreaded scale became my enemy. It was used as a primary judgment to diagnose me. I was patronized and humiliated. They would deliver full trays of food into my room and monitor my consumption or lack of it. Lunch was always adorned with a glass of water and a packet of Metamucil on the side. Tears would pour into the water as I emptied the content of the Metamucil packet into the glass. I watched as the solution solidified. I would take a few sips and vomit. Again, I was reprimanded because I only took a few sips of the prepared Metamucil. When I had entered the hospital, I was down to 78 pounds. By the time I left, I was down to a frightening 69 pounds, and still no one believed me. Without warning, they sent a psychiatrist into my room, sauntered into the room, made his way to the chair, and putting down his briefcase, taking out a notebook, he began asking questions about my views of food, how I wished I could eat, and rewind that tape of my life, how I wished someone believed me in the medical field, how I wished that I could look in the mirror and see that happy, healthy figure instead of a scared, pale, and painfully thin image of a stranger, a hollow reflection of the person I once was. I lived on the edge of fear as I watched my world collapse, shattered by mistrust and disillusionment and dismissed to live with my symptoms alone. I could no longer look at my body without sheer terror. I was emaciated, all bones, no muscle, no fat, no form, just skin desperately clinging to bone. People began to make their own assumptions about my health based on how I looked. One well-intentioned close friend of the family took my parents aside, confidentially told them that they were in denial, that I did have anorexia nervosa, and that they would personally take me to an eating disorder clinic in the state where they lived. Co-workers said that I would feel much better if I only ate, and other well-intentioned family members intruded their unfounded opinions brazenly into a world they didn't understand and where they didn't belong. So along with battling symptoms, I had to battle the war of not being believed. What a lonely, disappointing, frustrating, and isolating experience that so many of us have endured. As I frequented the emergency department because of impaction, I had doctors make jokes about how full of you-know-what I was. And I heard one doctor say, "Let's save her for last because I just don't want to do the impaction on that lady." Stripped of my pride, stripped of my dignity, I learned very quickly to become a hardened shell in order to endure the humiliation. I also learned to manually de-impact myself. As the years continued to unfold, my health struggles got worse. I remember the physical and mental pain of being alone on the bathroom floor, lying in a puddle of tears, hiding from my loved ones in order to spare them the pain of seeing me this way, broken, alone in prayer, and in desperate need of help. In 1984, I finally found a physician who indicated that my symptoms seemed to reflect that of a motility disorder. I had a multitude of motility tests, and finally the expert said I had chronic idiopathic intestinal pseudoobstruction, or SIPO. Finally, it had a name. It qualified all my suffering, but it was a rare disease, and I was 1 in 6 who were diagnosed with it in the Northeast. There would be no cure. The only remedy, they thought, was to remove part of my colon. However, I was not so quick to embrace their treatment. At 69 pounds, I didn't think I would live through the surgery. Plus, I had too many questions that were begging for answers that were unknown even to the doctors. I opted not to have the surgery. The doctor, in his frustration, refused to continue treating me as a patient. Angered by my decision, he told me I was trying to be a martyr, that I must have something to gain by being ill, and that I needed to seek psychiatric help. He blamed my husband for standing by my decision, and with that, he stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him, and I never saw him again. So we saw many of our dreams diminish, our hopes abandoned, and as newlyweds, our world suddenly came crashing down. It soon became apparent that I was not going to be able to continue to work. Another hurdle to say goodbye to a career that I absolutely loved. Along with job loss came tremendous financial hardships. The shame and guilt that I shouldered was unbearable. Not only couldn't I work, but now I was the cause of this incredible debt, a secret that I kept from others for many years. It is only through the grace of God that I've survived all these years. However, my battles continue. Along with pseudoobstruction, the disease has progressed to include my stomach with gastroparesis, my esophagus with gastroesophageal reflux, diffuse esophageal spasm, echolalia, dysphagia, and esophagitis. Not one night goes by without me waking up with a start, gasping for air as food and liquid aspirate into my lungs, cutting off my windpipe. Not one day goes by without feeling that dreaded wrenching pain mimicking a heart attack. Not one day goes by without trepidation that the next swallow is going to be the one that triggers an esophageal spasm that will cause me to choke, vomit, and gasp for air, lose my voice, and feel the anguish of pain in each subsequent swallow. Not one day goes by without me sitting in the bathroom hour after hour in order to dispel one small pellet of stool. And not one day goes by without relief for the 24-hour-a-day nausea and vomiting and pain. And these are just the digestive symptoms, all daily companions, all a normal part of my world now. Like many GI patients, I also suffer from a host of non-digestive diseases affecting every system within my body. Every new physician I visit is perplexed by the array of non-textbook symptoms I present them with. How could one tiny person have so many things wrong with her? It's so hard to go outside the home because of the uncertainty of the diseases. It's challenging to make plans, to adjust, and difficult to make others understand. When illness intruded into my life, I remember desperately trying to hold on to life itself. Now, as I continue to devise science, I embrace life. My spirit has been tested, beaten, and withered throughout the years. But I've also become determined and stronger-willed and have a faith so strong that it sustains me through every breath I take. I have become extremely masterful at masking my symptoms in public to take the focus off of me and to find the path to a coexistence with these foreign and unpredictable symptoms. In 1991, I was honored to have founded the Association of Gastrointestinal Motility Disorders, or AGMD, to help others with digestive motility disorders. I've heard the cries of patients. I've listened to the parents as they struggle to keep the tears from flooding down their faces as they explain what their child has been going through. I have been inspired by so many who have shared their stories, and also by the great work that many in the medical, scientific, and nutritional fields are doing in the field of digestive motility. My blessings outweigh losses. I have a loving, wonderful, and supportive husband, family, and friends. And of course, because of AGMD and my illness, I have met the most extraordinary people. I look at life so much more differently now. Life and every moment in it is so valuable. I wake up each day and I'm just so grateful to be alive, that I have a purpose, and that perhaps in some small way I can help someone in need. All the problems, stress, and worries in people's lives, I tell them to weigh them carefully to the scale of time and its value. When your health is gone, it takes so much with it. Though my life is infested with disease, the rewards of my heart are beyond measure by my work in helping patients and their families. It is an opportunity and a purpose that I've dedicated my life. This is the only life I know, and I'm living it to the fullest because life is such a precious gift. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Maryangela. That was just so almost heart-wrenching, but it ends really well. It's your positive attitude that shines through. So we should move on with our program, and we'll let you introduce the speakers.
Okay, I know we're running a little early. The first speaker is Dr. Richard McCallum. It is such an honor to introduce him. He will be speaking about nausea and gastroparesis. Dr. McCallum is a professor and founding chair of the Department of Medicine at Texas Tech University in El Paso, Texas, where he's currently director of GI Research and Center of Neurogastroenterology and Motility. Dr. McCallum? Apparently he's not here. We will also be having Dr. Flores. He will be talking about specifically gastroparesis in the pediatric world. And Dr. Flores, and I'll be saying this again probably, is the director of ambulatory and community practice. He's a senior associate motility and functional gastrointestinal disorders center section head comprehensive gastroenterology. And he will be speaking through the interview, and then we will be doing a video from Dr. Hiroshi Mashimo, who will be doing an update on rational symptom-based treatment of gastroparesis and gastropathy. And Dr. Mashimo is an academic gastroenterologist at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Massachusetts, in the VS, Boston Healthcare System, and Harvard Medical School, providing clinical consultation in specialized endoscopy and clinical expertise and innovation in technologies involving novel, transitional, and basic science research, particularly related to esophageal and motility disorders, and he has over 100 publications. Then we will be talking with Dr. Abel and Dr. Tansel, and they will be discussing the unmet needs in gastroparesis. Dr. Abel is from Louisville, Louisville, I should say. I want to talk like a regular person who lives there, Kentucky. He's a professor of medicine. Dr. Abel is a native of South Dakota. He practices GI motility at the University of Louisville, Kentucky. He was trained in practice primary care before his motility training. He has spent the last 35 years in Southern US studying academic GI motility, but his primary interest has been to discover the mechanisms of why patients develop GI motility disorders. His focus has always been on patients and how new knowledge can improve their care. And Dr. Tensel conducts clinical and transitional research related to diseases of gut health and cares for patients with diseases of gut health, gut-brain health, such as irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, and other motility GI diseases. She also cares for general gastroenterology patients. After that, we will be having a panel discussion with those doctors. And then that's the update. That's the news. That's the latest news.
Thank you, Maryangela. We have a few minutes to wait for Dr. McCollum to join us, but I just wanted to, in the event you are not, oh, I see Dr. McCollum here. People are really thanking you for sharing your story. Much of it parallels their 26 years with gastroparesis and SIBO. So it resonates deeply to one of our attendees. Another one comments, lovely, thank you. This was so beautiful. Thanks for all your work, Maryangela. Wow, what an amazing way to start the day. Thanks for sharing. So, it's not just Oley staff that appreciates you, it's the greater community. So always remember that, and hopefully it inspires you to.
You're all very kind, but thank you so much. It's all of you, Oley and all the patients. They're the one, I always say, you're the motive behind the work.
Yeah, they
the
are.
Inspiration behind it. And I'm just so grateful for everybody.
Yes, and we are at the Oley Foundation too.